It's Monday. That means it's time for headlines, news, and everything pertinent to the Cincinnati Bengals, the AFC North, and the NFL because training camps are opening. I'm Anthony Cosenza, part of this show we call the Orange and Black Insider. Might be joined by another guest host here in a little bit. Don't know for sure. We'll see what happens there, but I'm Anthony Cosenza. Happy to have you with us, whether you're joining us live or after the fact. Appreciate you tuning into this show and all of the shows on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel. I know there's a lot of great podcasts out there, a lot of great Bengals shows out there. We appreciate you hopefully making us your go-to show, and if not, at least putting us in the rotation. We appreciate it. We're going to get to a lot of different headlines. There's a lot of different stuff as the Bengals have started to take the field for training camp. It's kind of more walkthroughs and drills and that sort of thing at this point in time. But obviously, as guys report, there's a lot of different news. And, oh boy, is there some talk about some contracts with the Stars, this continuing ongoing saga with the contract extensions for Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and others. We're going to share a lot of different stuff on the screen for you. So hopefully, if you like the video side of things, you give us a subscribe on the YouTube channel down below on this side here, right down there by the Cincy Jungle icon. Our show icon is there, so click that. Then click subscribe. Click the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available. Give this video and other videos we've got out there that you do like, give them a thumbs up if you would. You also got to give a thumbs up to the Cincy Jungle Facebook page. We stream live. I want to say Twitter. I don't know if I can call it Twitter anymore, right? It's X, I guess now. So we stream live there on various accounts. We stream live on the other accounts, but if you can't catch those live, I know our schedule's a little varied, but if you can't catch our streams live, then go ahead, catch them after the fact on the video side, or subscribe through your favorite podcast channel, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We are on all of them. Leave us a review if you could. We greatly appreciate it. Okay, so where do we want to start? How about we start with some positive stuff? Because we always like to start it's Monday. Not everybody's feeling it. Not everybody's back with it here. So let's go here. And this is from the incomparable Kay Adams. If you have not seen this on Twitter and her show on FanDuel TV, she had PFF headman, former Bengals wide receiver, and NBC color analyst Chris Collinsworth on her show. Here is the video. Hopefully you will be able to hear it. But I won't play the whole, she's got a minute 51 on here. I won't play the whole thing, but you'll get the vibe from Chris Collinsworth. He thinks the Bengals and Joe Burrow in particular are in store for a very, very special year.
Joe Burrow has a chance to do it all this year. And let me just tell you why. The last 2 years, he's been phenomenal, okay? He's been phenomenal. And each year, 2 years ago, he was coming off a really bad knee injury, and nobody knew if he was even going to be able to make it, right? So they start off a little slow, whatever. Last year, he comes off the appendectomy, and nobody thinks anything of it. And here they come at the end of the season, and they're in the Super Bowl one year, and they're within a whisper, a couple of plays away from beating Kansas City and going back to the Super Bowl. So honestly, my pick to win the Super Bowl, even though it's stupid to say it, is the Bengals. What I should pick is Philadelphia. Because they've got the easier path, right? Philadelphia, Dallas, San Francisco, take your pick.
Okay, so that's just a taste. That's about half the video. But when Collinsworth also said the Bengals or Joe Burrow getting it all, or, what the verbiage he used about all this year. I think he also means, of course, league MVP, constant awards, that sort of thing. This seems to be based on maturity, development, the hits on a lot of different draft picks. Yes, there are some question marks on this team based on free agency attrition and based on, hey, are players like Zachary Carter and others on the defensive line going to step up? How's that offensive line going to hold up overall? Right tackle, everything. There are some questions, but the questions are really minimalized comparative to the last couple of off seasons, right? I mean, these guys have been here now for the most part. You do have questions at safety, and you've got some young guys that have to step up, but this team seems primed for yet another deep run, and they probably will be at least somewhat of an in vogue pick this year to go back to the Super Bowl, win it all. And Chris Collinsworth was a guy who, here's a guy, right? Isn't that a saying? Chris Collinsworth he has not been shy about criticizing the Bengals and or being objective in the booth when he needs to be. But he has also recognized greatness. He has also recognized how good this team has been the past couple of years. Hence why he's saying what he is saying in this clip here on with Kay Adams. So go check out that entire clip. It's about 2 minutes long. I think it played about 30, 40 seconds of it. And obviously go check out Kay Adams' show on FanDuel TV. She has a lot of great guests, and she is highly, highly entertaining, near and dear to Bengaldom's heart because of her attachment to the team in their Super Bowl run a couple of years ago and since really. So we'll keep it rolling though. The vibes are good. And real quick, I see a lot of our buddies, a lot of Bengals fans made it to this guy's birthday party, and that is Mr. Joe Mixon, who had one of those what was it, a all white or whiteout party or whatever you call it, similar to the one that I guess Joe Burrow went to over July 4th or Memorial Day, whatever it is here. You can see here, happy birthday, Joe Dean. And that is officially, as of this morning, happy birthday, Joe Mixon. Yeah, he's got a new contract, maybe not the one he was envisioning, but hey, he's with the team. He's still making good money, and a lot of his contemporaries at that position can't say the same at this point in time. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but happy birthday, Joe Mixon, a valuable member of the Cincinnati Bengals, locker room leader, and hopefully he is primed for a big, big year coming up for the Cincinnati Bengals because, hey, they take that. They would like that. Getting back to, hey, he had some nice games, obviously, last year. The 5-touchdown game. I mean, he had some really nice games last year. Missed a little bit of time. P. Ryan stepped in and played nicely, but Mixon in 21, he was great from multiple facets, and basically was a Pro Bowl back. Obviously, didn't go to it because of the Super Bowl. So, if they can get that kind of production again out of him, and then supplement him well with Travion Williams and Chase Brown, that's a win right there. But happy birthday, Joe Mixon. Hopefully you had a great, great day. And it looks like a lot of Bengals fans and a lot of others had a great time at the party. I think it was last night. So if you went there, definitely share some pics and stories with us if you went there. All right. This is just another, hey, let's just gush over Joe Burrow real quick. I found this. I think it was late last night. Matt Bowen, who does a lot of film breakdown here, obviously former NFL safety, just talking about, he's saying, went through Joe Burrow's throws versus pressure on 22 tape, pocket mobility / movement, best in the league. Now, obviously people are going to say, well, wait, what about Mahomes? What about Lamar Jackson? This is a nuance, and this is a great play, by the way, in case you can't see that. But it's a nuanced statement. Pocket mobility and movement in the pocket. I think the other guys I mentioned are more, hey, what do they do outside of the pocket? What do they do further down the line when the play continues to break down further and further and further, as opposed to what you saw in that film right there. But Joe just dances around, arms grabbing at his ankles, right? He's just dancing around that pocket. We've seen it time and time again. We saw it from him briefly as a rookie. We saw it from him a lot the following year, and then even more so this next year. And obviously he is a magician back there. Not so much, he runs. We know he's mobile, and we've got a clip about that too that's kind of entertaining that'll be coming up here in just a little bit. But he runs, he's mobile, we know that. But really what Bowen is talking about there is the mobility in the pocket, the ability to be elusive while maintaining his stance in a pocket or recreating a pocket instead of, going way outside the tackles and doing something different, or, tucking and running type of thing. And those guys too that I mentioned, Mahomes, Herbert does it, Lamar Jackson does it. I mean, they do great stuff in the pocket as well. But again, it's just a next level type of thing, as Matt Bowen pointed out with Joe Burrow. And I thought that, even though it's just a small little clip there, I wanted to share that with you. It was, in case you were listening to the audio side later on, it was against the Ravens, where he is dancing around guys, just diving at his ankles, diving at his feet, and throws a ball kind of across the field a little bit to Tyler Boyd there for a nice game. But some relatively big news coming across here this Monday, and this is from Bengals.com. We like to promote our Cincy Jungle site and articles when we can, but hey, we're going to give it's direct from the source, Bengals.com. Bengals re-sign, and he is the title image guy of this episode here, Mitchell Wilcox, a guy who's kind of made some, incremental steps in his career since joining them as an undrafted free agent out of South Florida there. And he is a guy that, look, the Bengals were looking to add to their tight end group in some form or fashion. I kind of felt like, maybe the Wilcox boat had sailed because they had waited so long to bring him back here. But I kind of felt like maybe this was a final cut, and maybe there still is, a waiver wire scouring after final cuts or late cuts this summer. The Bengals have been known to do that. Zach Taylor has done that. They did that with Devin Asiasi just last year at this position group. So I thought maybe that was maybe where they were going to go later on. They still might do that, but the Bengals bring back a trusted guy. He's going to be down the pecking order in the tight end group, but now, he's your TE3, TE4. You have here him coming back, 6'4", 245, fourth-year player, and 31 career games, 20 passes, 155, and 1 touchdown reception for Mitchell Wilcox, a guy who also is valuable on special teams. But they did place Mitchell Wilcox on the he's on the active but physically unable to perform list. So he is on the PUP list upon re-signing here. So obviously the Bengals are going to monitor that. They're going to get him through the rehab process and everything. And then once he's ready to practice, they will take him off that PUP list, put him on the active roster, and off we go. But Mitchell Wilcox, a guy, again, the Bengals love and forgive the term, devils, the devils they know, then the devils they don't, right? So that's why guys like Wilcox, that's why Drew Sample are back in the fold, not only because the offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, and Zach Taylor, head coach, trust these guys, but also they do some stuff on special teams, and Darren Simmons probably has some sway in this regard here as well. So that's a guy that they want to bring back here. And they did. So Mitchell Wilcox back with the Bengals and is on the PUP list to start the season. Okay. Keeping on. Let's go. This is from our guy, Drew Garrison, writing this up on Cincy Jungle, the Bengals. And I'll kind of breeze through the actual article a little bit. No offense, Drew. Love you, buddy. But because there is an associated, and I'll give you guys the link in the live chat here, but there is an associated video. I don't want to play the whole video, but it's worth noting some quotes from Mike Brown, who sat down with media members today, as of Monday. Here you go, right here. This is via Jay Morrison, who is now at his new post at the Pro Football Network. Mike Brown on Burrow negotiations. I have bound myself not to talk about Joe's contract. The other side has done the same. I don't want to break that. Of course, Mike Brown, a loyal guy, man of his word. And, obviously Burrow's not holding out because of the contract. He is at practice. He's doing the drills and everything like that. Same thing with OTAs. He's doing his deal and being a leader. And here is from Caleb Noe. Duke Tobin was asked about Joe Burrow's contract negotiations. He says he has no update. He doesn't want to go play for play with details publicly. So they are keeping this very close to the vest. Now, before I play this clip in just a second here, you have to understand that, yes, they want to keep this obviously close to the vest. This is, this kind of sensitive stuff, right? I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a franchise player, one of the best in the league. I mean, there's a lot going on here, right? So obviously both sides want to respect that. You also have the report from, I think it was Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, who covers the Steelers in the AFC North. He reported not too long ago that Burrow may be waiting out the Herbert contract negotiations to get the absolute clearest picture of, the top new young quarterbacks and their contracts. So he has all of the numbers, and then obviously continues to surpass them and kind of becomes that, new highest paid guy or whatever that case may be. We don't know that for a fact, but that was a report given out by Jeremy Fowler not too long ago that Burrow is kind of waiting out that situation. We'll see if that comes to pass. But I want to play this, and this is credit to, is it this one or is it this one right here? Joe Daneman of Fox 19. So he had, let's see here. Let me pin this up and we'll play it. Mike Brown talking, and this is one of many clips that are out there. There are a lot of great clips today that are out there based on this contract talk. And this is, again, from Mike Brown. And I've got some thoughts on this in just a second, but here you go. Again, deflected the Joe Burrow. It's a minute 43, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. I want you to go check out the clip from Joe Daneman himself, but he did put this out there, and I do think it is worth noting.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? Think of the cap as a pie. And once you take out one piece, there's less left for the next guy. And it just is obvious that when all teams are essentially paying the same thing, we're all paying up to the cap, no more, just that amount. And, pardon me, it is hard to fit everybody in. It's impossible to fit everybody in at the rate they wish they could be paid. So you lose some guys every year. There's attrition. You try to work around it. We have done that for a few years now. But it's free agency in the draft, re-signing guys, trying to.
Okay, so you can go check out the rest of the clip there. Look, Mike Brown, again, was not going to give a lot of info, give a lot of intel on things. I'm going to say a couple of things with this, though. Look, people hear and read these quotes and are likely to panic, right? I mean, they're gonna take this and they're gonna run with it, and they're gonna say, "Oh man, that means he's saying they're not going to be able to keep all these guys that they've been trying to." No, I don't believe that that's what's being said here. Personally, I have seen a lot from this team over the years. I have seen the changes that have come the last few years. There are things that remain, and I have said this a number of times on this show, on my contemporary show, my peer shows, all that stuff when I've done appearances. There are positions. Number one, there are now other people's voices in the room with Mike Brown, right? Elizabeth Blackburn, Katie Blackburn, Troy Blackburn, Duke Tobin, that are saying, hey, these are the guys we're keeping. These are the guys we got to keep around, that sort of thing, right? Additionally, the other element that goes with this is that if you look historically through the bad years of the Cincinnati Bengals, through the pretty good ones of Carson Palmer, Chad Johnson, through that other pretty good stretch with Andy Dalton and AJ Green, this team pays their quality skill position players well, and they find ways to do it. And they keep multiple at a same time. They did it with tact. You go back to the mid 2000s. They paid Chad, they paid TJ, they paid Carson, they paid Whitworth, they paid Levi Jones, they paid Willie Anderson. I mean, they paid these guys. They paid them, and they paid them big contracts. They paid Rudy Johnson. You go to the next group. Andy Dalton got a big contract. AJ Green got it. They pay guys, and they pay multiple guys. So this narrative that is existing, it isn't true. It isn't necessarily true. Now, Mike Brown also mentioned attrition, and you roll with the punches and you try and sign as many guys as you can, that sort of thing. I don't necessarily believe he is pointing to Burrow, Higgins, eventually Chase, Logan Wilson, that sort of thing. I think he actually may be pointing to some of the guys that left already in free agency this year. Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Hayden Hurst. I think that's more and that's just my opinion here, but I think that's more who he's pointing to about attrition. Now, will it be very difficult to keep Burrow, Higgins, Chase, Logan Wilson? Yes, it will, particularly with where the linebacker market is. It's all over the map. And then you basically have 2 number ones in Higgins and Chase, and they're going to want to be paid like that. And then you've got a franchise quarterback. So you have a problem, but in some ways it's a good problem on your hands because you got a lot of talented guys you want to keep around and pay. So I exactly, Tom Brooks right here, echoing my sentiments right here. I think it's the guy. I think it's more the guys that they lost this year. Now, I wasn't unfortunately in that room speaking with him and getting the absolute vibe there, but in seeing that, that's kind of my takeaway. Go check out Joe Daneman from Fox 19, his clip there from Mike Brown. There are others. I think Olivia Ray has a good clip out there. Jay Morrison has some clips. I'm sure I didn't catch all of them, but I'm sure all the great beat writers for the Bengals have takes on that. I saw Kelsey Conway put out some tweets as well. So go check all of those out. That's just my takeaway so far. I know people are ready to jump off the edge, especially when it comes from Mike Brown. And there's money talk and, it's difficult to keep these guys, but you got to keep things into perspective. And you have to also look at it from an alternative reality as well. And I think there are other players involved in these talks to be able to get these types of things done. We'll see what happens. We're going to keep rolling on, though. Great stuff from Joe Daneman and many, many others out there covering the Cincinnati Bengals. But bottom line, they're mum's the word on the Burrow contract. That is for sure what's happening there. So speaking of Burrow, we already had, Collinsworth gush about him. We had Matt Bowen gush about him. Would you believe that a former division rival gushed about him? And this is from relayed from, I think this is on his podcast, but this is relayed from that podcast by @WDN Today. And this is Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know if you saw his clip. This is Ben Roethlisberger gushing about Joe Burrow. And I mean, it's a little bit of player speak, but hey, I mean, for a guy that has not been in the best graces of the Cincinnati Bengals over the years, check out what he had to say about Burrow.
To sit there and actually watch Joe is one of the elites in the league. Like he's good. His pocket presence, he can move, he can run enough. He's a sneaky good runner.
Yep.
Great decision maker, great throws. And then, he got hurt too. So you're like, okay, how's he going to come off the knee? I'm telling you what, I really like, I don't think it's too long till he's in MVP talks. I really believe that. And so I can't say enough about Joe. And it hurts me to say that about a division opponent, but I'm not in the division anymore. So it doesn't matter.
So go check out @WDN Today on, I want to say Twitter, but I guess it's X. I got to make that transition on X. You got to check that out. They relay a lot of cool Bengals news and stuff there through their social media. I think they're on TikTok and Instagram and everything like that. But that is some really, really high praise. I know a lot of people love to hate on Big Ben, and for, sometimes good reasons, sometimes not good reasons, whatever. But at the end, he's like, hey, I hate to give credit to a division. You heard what he said at the end there. Hate to give credit to a division rival, but hey, I'm not in the division anymore technically, so whatever. And he kind of laughs it off a little bit. I thought that was an entertaining clip, and go check out. Also want to credit, the people that are relaying this kind of stuff. We relay a lot of it, or we write up our own kind of stuff on Cincy Jungle and obviously on this podcast and whatnot. But when other people are putting out quality stuff and stuff that we fish for to bring you news and tidbits and all of that, we want to credit them. So WDN, I think that stands for Who Dey Nation Today, @WDN Today. So go check them out. All right. Well, I mentioned this earlier with Wilcox and his roster designation as he re-signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. There are a couple of others, and this is pretty predictable. This is what I've been saying for a long time. I wasn't as sure about it with Chidobe Awuzie because he has looked amazing in rehab drills and all kinds of different stuff, throughout the spring and the summer. But Collins, I was pretty sure because – number one, his injury occurred way later in the season than did Awuzie's. Number two, I think it was more significant. And number three, he's just a bigger guy, and sometimes that takes on some that takes that takes extra time for a player here. So let's here's the news here, and I think I pinned it in the live chat. If I didn't, I'll repin it for you. But Bengals placed Chidobe Awuzie, Lael Collins, and Devin Cochran on PUP list. And here, pretty cut and dry. Now, Bengals fans are some of the most well-educated and football-savvy people out there. So I just want to put this out there, obviously. And I think we all learned this regardless of what age we were. I think we all learned this the hard way with the, the Antonio Bryant situation about 15 years ago with the Cincinnati Bengals. But essentially, you have them on the PUP list, and then when you take them off and they're practicing, they are obviously no longer able to be on the PUP list, and then you got to have roster designations for these guys. So the Bengals are obviously going easy with Awuzie and Collins, and of course Devin Cochran on there as well. But so I tend to think, again, because of the timeline of the injury and the other factors I mentioned, I tend to think that Awuzie will come off of the PUP list sooner than Collins. When that is, I don't know. So now, you've got DJ Turner having to step up in a bigger role. We knew that was going to happen. Potentially Sidney Jones. We talked about that with his when we talked about him potentially being a breakout player of sorts on this show. We knew that this was going to kind of be the thing, that Awuzie was going to be a guy that was going to have to sit out at least this first part. Is he going to be ready week 1? Don't know. Is he going to be ready week 2? Don't know. He could be off of the PUP list at that point, but the Bengals sit him for a game or two. So we'll see here. Obviously, you read here, the hope is that he will be ready for week 1. Obviously, if he's going to be ready for week 1, you want him to be at as close to full strength and game condition as possible. Or it could be, if he is ready for week 1, maybe he's kind of taking a lighter load of snaps, right? That's why the Bengals went heavier at defensive back and cornerback in this year's class. So we'll see what happens with Cheeto, and Lael may have to be a guy that they rely on a little bit later in the season, right? If there's injuries, Jonah Williams very well may take over that right tackle spot and actually thrive, and that's the hope, obviously. But he has had injury issues, right? Lael Collins has had a history in the NFL at playing left guard. If there's an issue with Cordell Volson at some point, injury or something, he's kind of a valuable guy to have, even though he's recovering from this injury right now. And so we'll see what happens with these guys going forward. But the Bengals have them on the right track, wisely putting them on the PUP list going forward. I think we're going to transition a little bit into let's do some AFC North stuff. And what we're going to do just on this show, we're going to bring in some other AFC North people that cover the Ravens, cover the Browns, cover the Steelers, to give us some inside perspective, look at their draft classes and see how the training camp is evolving. So that's one of the things we're looking to do with a lot of different guests. So we're going to bring on some guests there, hopefully some other really cool guests that, cover the Bengals and other places there. So we'll bring all that for you. All right, let's go. Baltimore Ravens. This is from BaltimoreRavens.com. And of course, their big addition. And a lot of people are thinking, that this guy, despite being a little bit up there in age and despite coming off some injuries, that this guy is going to be the difference maker this year for the Baltimore Ravens. And that is Odell Beckham Jr., of course. And this is from an article on BaltimoreRavens.com. Training camp has been a, quote, long time in the making for Odell Beckham Jr. And so he's on a, quote, slow incline this offseason. And so he's talking about participating in a training camp is a benchmark for how far he's come since tearing his ACL more than 17 months ago in Super Bowl I don't even want to talk about that Super Bowl because we know the outcome there. But yes, he did suffer the ACL tear in that game. He says, quote, I'm excited. It's been a long time having to sit out and watch other people and not get to play. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. I think I've always been like this, always looking to be motivated, looking to be great. So I think at the end of the day, my story will be about resiliency and just being able to bounce back time after time. Time will tell if Odell Beckham Jr. will be the difference maker and or will be the guy that we saw closer to the outstanding rookie and young player with the New York Giants, or if he's kind of going to be the guy that's, Father Time's catching up a little bit to him and or the injuries are catching up to him. Obviously, I think the Ravens have plans for him and he will have a modicum of success and a level of contributions to their team. It's just a matter of, hey, how high are those contributions going to be? I know the Ravens are hopeful that he's going to have high contributions, but we'll have to see. He's been, as he said, quote, on a slow incline back from that knee injury. All right. And the Baltimore Ravens always looking for the hybrid linebackers, guys who have been veterans in this league and had success. And here they go, bringing in for a visit, Kyle Van Noy, a guy who recently had a couple of good seasons. I can't remember precisely what happened with him with the Chargers last year. I don't think it was as, he's 32 years old. How did he do last year? Let's see. I saw this on here. He had 5 sacks last year, but it was the year that he had actually with Marion Hobby, I believe, the defensive line coach with the Dolphins. He had an outstanding year with Miami a couple of years ago, and so that's kind of where he's exploded there. He is up there in age, but a guy that they feel can come in potentially and fill the role that this team always seems to need. I mean, they always bring in these rotational hybrid players, and so I thought I put that on there for you, the Baltimore Ravens. But anyway, go check out. That's from Baltimore Beatdown, by the way, at the Ravens SB Nation site, talking about Kyle Van Noy coming in for a visit. We're going to be here just a little bit longer, but I do want to bring in, better late than never, a guest co-host. You've seen him on the 3 and Out podcast or heard him on the 3 and Out podcast with Kevin Brown on our show, on our channel, the Orange and Black Insider channel, as well as on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel. Mr. Jason Garrison coming in like a champ. He said, hey, I can't do it. Now he says he can. Welcome in, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight, but talking Bengals. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I don't want to make that happen. Good God.
No, I'm good. Hey, I appreciate you asking me to come on. Thanks for having me.
You are fresh off of a couple of nice family trips, my friend. Are you rested? Are you ready for training camp? You timed it well.
No, I'm not rested. I took vacation. I took vacation with 2 kids under that can't really entertain themselves. So I'm not rested, but I am ready for training camp. I'm very excited.
Have you ever seen the movie Black Sheep with
of course,
the late great Chris Farley? There's an image, I think is a meme that was created of him where he just, I think it was shortly after he in the movie took a tumble down the mountain, so his hair's all whatever, and his jacket's all messed up and he's dirty, and the meme is me as a parent coming back from vacation with kids. So I feel you. All right. So just to catch you up, have you been keeping up with
I just clocked off, man. I haven't been able to do anything. I'm sorry.
All right. No, don't worry about it. I just to rehash, and we're gonna do a little bit more AFC North news and a little bit in NFL news, and then we're gonna get out of here. But just to rehash, have you heard or listened to the comments by Mike Brown about the contract situation with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, etc.? Have you heard or read about that so far?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard the actual words out of his mouth? I don't know if you've heard him talk about it.
I listened to it. I listened to on Twitter. I listened to that segment basically talking about how he'd like to keep everyone together and they don't want to lose people. I heard.
So
what he was
my
saying.
sentiment, because there's going to be a contingent of fan that says there's Mike Brown. He's not going to pay everybody. That's what he's talking about. I said this a little bit ago, and feel free to disagree with me if you think otherwise. But I said, because he says there's going to be attrition, there's going to be X, Y, and Z that occur when you try and make these contracts work. I said, I feel like the attrition that he's pointing to is not losing these guys, the Chase, the Higgins, Burrow. That's right. I think it's already happened. I think he's talking about Bell and Bates and some of these guys that they Hayden Hurst and others that they lost already this year. And that's maybe more pointing to, I mean, we like those guys, but we got to keep those three plus Logan Wilson potentially together.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I don't think it points in any way, shape, or form that he's saying, get ready to lose Higgins or Chase or both. Or I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it could be that he was talking about Bell. And I could see, DJ Reader's going to be a free agent after this year. I could see them moving on from DJ, which would suck because he's been amazing. But I could see, DJ Reader, Chidobe Awuzie is going to be a free agent where they're saying, they're going to lose these guys. And that's, I get it. I get that. I don't know if they'll be able to keep Higgins. I absolutely 100% believe that they will extend Burrow before the season starts. I don't think that there's any question in my mind that will happen.
Right.
Chase next. I think that they'll be able to extend Chase. I don't know about Higgins. I'd love to see all three of them be kept together. But I don't think he's warning people that they won't be. I think it's more coach speak out of it. That's what he's not going to overextend himself. He's like a doctor. Yeah, you're going to be just fine. And then you're not, you know what I mean? Like he's just saying, just not making any promises that he possibly wouldn't be able to keep. He's just coach speak. I'm not going to give up too much, that's all it is.
Yeah. Okay. So quickly, one of the big pieces of news, aside from kind of pup list designations and all that kind of stuff, recently is the Mitchell Wilcox re-signing with the Bengals. And I kind of thought that, maybe the Bengals, I mean, they've got, prior to him coming to the team, they had Irv Smith, Drew Sample, Devin Asiasi is still there, Tanner Hudson, I think Nick Bowers, and was it Christian Trahan, I think are all tight ends on the roster right now.
Right.
I kind of feel like I felt like before the signing that the Bengals were maybe going to go, waiver wire scour for a late cut like they did with Asiasi last year. And then they bring in Wilcox here because I thought that ship had kind of sailed. Do you still think that is something they look at, or do you think that they are likely to keep, 3 or 4, and that's going to be Irv Smith, Drew Sample, Asiasi, and or Wilcox?
Well, I know that they said that they put Wilcox on the PUP list. I'm not really sure what his injury is. I don't know. Do you know?
It happened a while ago, so I'm looking it up here.
I don't really know what his health status is. I think they're all in on Irv Smith Jr. I think that I think they think that he can be everything that CJ Uzoma or that Hayden Hurst was, and maybe more especially as a receiver. Drew Sample, I think he's a fine backup. He'll be okay. He's an extra blocker. He'll contribute occasionally, as a pass catcher. Same with Asiasi. But I don't think that they're going to be looking, especially now that they've brought Wilcox back. And if he's healthy enough to go in the regular season, I don't think that they're going to be looking to bring any other tight ends in. I think they're pretty happy with the roster the way it is. Maybe some, as far as like positions they're looking with late cuts and stuff like that, I could possibly see some defensive line and stuff, but I think tight end is probably low on their list of priorities.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna get back if you're okay with it. Those are kind of the major things. A lot of the others were some clips I played of people gushing about Joe Burrow and all kinds of stuff. Some prominent people, but we're gonna get back to some AFC North stuff here, and let's roll with the Cleveland Browns. And this is from clevelandbrowns.com. And this is an interesting article here. Marquise Goodwin's recovery. And this is from Doc Llewellyn. Marquise Goodwin's recovery is, quote, inspirational for Amari Cooper and Browns teammates. I bring this up, and I'll talk about some quotes. I bring this up because I think there's kind of some moves that have flown under the radar a little bit by the Browns, and how they've kind of rebuilt things from last year. But he was sidelined with blood clots. The Browns announced Friday. And then the quote here from Kevin Stefanski is, it's very scary, and right away you worry about Marquise and his health. All of it remains to be seen from a health standpoint and when he is ready to go. In the meantime, we're supporting him, and he is listening to doctors. So, it's very inspirational, said Cooper. We're used to adversity and the ebbs and flows. A lot of people are high on Cooper, rightfully so. Good route runner. And then you've got Goodwin here. Hopefully this situation remedies itself and he comes back and, he's healthy and ready to go. But there are still some key players. They've got Chubb. They've got, Myles Garrett, and they've got still a good offensive line. They've sprinkled in some players. I think Zadarius Smith was an addition as well. So, I mean, they've sprinkled in some players here, and they've given the Bengals some fits. So, I mean, I guess just from a macro perspective, your kind of thoughts about the Browns from a Bengals perspective as well, macro Bengals perspective, your thoughts kind of on the Browns and how they've retooled. Obviously, Deshaun Watson getting more football under his belt and kind of being in this system a second year. I don't know. Is this a team that scares you, or is it still kind of, hey, Ravens, and that's really where the focus is?
I mean, the AFC North is the AFC North, and AFC North football games are notorious for just being ugly, grind them out games. You could take the best offense in the league, and if it's an AFC North, high flying offense, and it scores 17 points in a win in an AFC North matchup. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The Browns have a very good defense. They have two good. Myles Garrett is maybe the best 4-3 edge rusher in the NFL. Good secondary, good offensive line. The only place they're kind of lacking, I think, is in the wide receiver room. Not to say Amari Cooper's bad or anything like that. It's just that they don't. If you look at the AFC North wide receiver rooms, you have the Bengals, who maybe have the best group of wide receivers in the NFL. The Steelers have Pickens. They have Deontay Johnson. They brought in Allen Robinson. Yeah. The Ravens brought in OBJ. They drafted a guy in the first round, Flowers, I think, in the first round. And they still had somebody. I'm sure they have somebody. They also have a great tight end. So I think the Browns have the worst group of receivers in the AFC North. Not to say they're bad. They don't rank as high. But they also have Nick Chubb, who I think is one of the best running backs in the league. They do scare me. But it's all going to come down to Deshaun Watson. If he is who they paid him to be, which is still the contract is outlandish to me, but if they paid him if he is who they paid him to be, then they could be scary. But I don't think top to bottom this team is as good as the Bengals are. At all. I think the Bengals are better in every way, but it's the AFC North.
Elijah Moore was added. Donovan Peoples-Jones, the guy that just has routinely destroyed the Bengals, especially with Baker Mayfield. He's still in the room. Anthony Schwartz, he was a draft pick a couple of years ago. Jakeem Grant, I think, was added as well. So those are some of the names in there, along, of course, with Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore being kind of the big name there. But as you look at this article I've put up here, and this is on Dogs by Nature, the Cleveland Browns SB Nation site. Stefanski discusses and notes Deshaun Watson has, quote, quite a bit of input in the system. Now, I don't know that was necessarily I don't cover this team as intimately as I do with the Cincinnati Bengals, but I don't know that was so much the case last year, because everybody was kind of playing catch up and he was suspended and all that kind of stuff. And now I think with an additional full off season, and then, it literally says on the tweet here, changing of the offense. I think this is kind of a new element here, and potentially one that does go well, and say, hey, Deshaun, give us some things that you think you do well and what you think would serve us well as a team.
Right.
And an offense.
Yeah. I mean, and if that translates to wins, I know in one of Watson's best years in Houston, it didn't really translate to a lot of wins on the stat sheet and stuff. It's clear that he's a talented quarterback. I think that he could be dangerous for the Bengals. It's AFC North football. It's ugly football. That's how I expect all these games to go with the AFC North, is just ugly football. I don't expect any NFL team or any AFC North game to be a shootout where it's like 40 something. Do you remember the Bengals Browns games or the Bengals Browns game several years ago? It was like 43-42 or some crazy. Do you remember that?
There was that one, and then there was like the 51 to. Yeah, and that was that. I mean, nobody could stop anyone on defense, and I think really what ended up ending that one was the Delph O'Neal pick six of all things.
Right.
It was
right.
Nobody could stop anyone with defense, and then That's how
I
that
think
one
that's
ends.
I think that's the outlier for AFC North football. It's mostly ugly, some turnovers. I expect rain for some reason, just bad weather. You know what I mean? That's just
Yeah.
AFC North football. So every team in the AFC North I think is scary. I think the AFC North is the best division in football. So yeah.
Yep, I
But-
agree. Let's move on to those lovely, lovely Steelers and some news with them here. Where do we want to start here? Well, let's talk because Joe Mixon's contract has been kind of the talk of Bengals circles here. Najee Harris is now among one of the NFL running backs on Saturday's Zoom call discussing suppressed contract market per reports there. And obviously, I think maybe Saquon Barkley. I don't want to miss,
Joe
misname
Mixon was in
people,
there.
but-
Joe
Yeah.
Mixon was on the call. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are a lot of different guys in there saying, hey, look, there's a devaluation of the position. There's no doubt about it in the NFL. And I think, teams look at it from a pragmatic standpoint and say, look, we can get guys who can contribute on, quickly on a rookie deal that give us, the same kind of production that a running back on their second or third big contract. Well, yeah, their first big contract after their rookie deal or their second big contract after the rookie deal. We can get similar production from these young guys, but these guys are saying, hey, they're taking the brunt of the beating, quite honestly.
Right.
If you're carrying the ball 30 times and catching it another 5 to 10, you're getting tackled most likely, unless you have a great game. You're getting tackled and hit pretty hard, probably 37 plus times on 40 touches, right? So, I see where they're coming from on this, but Steelers Najee Harris, I think he was one of, if not, he's kind of one of the leading voices, I think, on this deal. Yeah. But
Well, I think there's a few things that have been responsible for the devaluation of the position, and one is that quarterbacks have been more mobile. Is you have Lamar or you have Jackson, you have Jalen Hurts, Burrow can run if he needs to. There's a lot more, like Carson Palmer, where his feet were made out of concrete, and if he, just where he had to stand there, like those guys, and they still exist, but there's this new wave of quarterbacks who can get things done with their legs as well if they need to, even if it's not running downfield. Like Jackson or like Fields do in Chicago. Like Burrow can get things done downfield if he needs to, but he's so good at moving around in the pocket, better than Palmer ever could have dreamed of being. I think I'm faster than Palmer, and I'm not fast at all. But so there's that, and then there's the fact that like all these, Isaiah Pacheco is a great example. Isaiah Pacheco is a 7th round pick. He comes in, he almost immediately he supplants the Clyde's Edward-Helaire, who was, I don't know what round he was drafted in, but it wasn't the 7th. End of the first, yeah. And he's kind of that offense flows through Patrick Mahomes. So the running back doesn't really matter, but the running back has been Pacheco, and they don't have to pay him what they might have had to pay Clyde Edwards-Helaire had he done really well. You know what I mean? And the end of the whole offense, everything, all the schemes now, everything flows through the quarterback. The quarterback, it's always been the most important position in football, but now maybe more so than ever. So offenses are scoring with their quarterbacks. They're not scoring with running backs. There's a few, Derrick Henry's an example of an outlier there, but there's only one Derrick Henry. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when he's gone, I don't know, there's just bell cow running backs. It's not really that much of a thing anymore. So it'll come back. I do think it'll come back. It's going to ebb and flow. It'll come back. Everyone will be running their defense in like these nickel packages to stop these downfield offenses. And then someone's going to find the next Derrick Henry, and he'll get paid a bunch of money, and teams will copy. That's a copycat league.
Sorry, Well, the thing is right now too, is while there are some good running backs in the league that there's not a lot of quality, at least depth on offensive line.
Right.
You are seeing this, particularly from that 2020 class, but you're starting to see this, again, a renaissance of good quarterback play throughout the league, where a lot of teams have good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And because of that, that's where the money's going, and it's going to go there, right?
Right.
So, when you have a big deal for Hurts, you have a big deal for Watson, you're having what's going to be a big deal for Burrow, a big deal for Mahomes, what's going to be a big deal for Justin Herbert. You look down the line, Tua's probably going to get paid somewhere, right? You look down the line, it's good. You know, there's a lot of good young quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, in this league.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, in yesteryear, you had to clamor to get a good quarterback, and you could get kind of the bell cow back, the big backs that you know, get you 1,500 rushing yards plus another 300 on the ground type of thing, or through the air rather. I think, you know, that's just not. It's a quarterback driven league right now. It always is a quarterback driven league, but especially right now. And I think that's why these guys are, you know, suffering a little bit on that.
Yeah.
And you see here, Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, they all received the franchise tag, and that's worth just over $10 million there. And we'll talk more about that there. But Harris on the call with an Austin Eckler, kind of the leader guy of this thing too. So, you know, I don't expect it to change very soon, but probably in the near future, you know, maybe there's a dry spell in quarterbacks around the league. And then, you know, that position kind of becomes a bit of a necessity here. Moving on, this guy is starting to become a pretty good player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that is the other, you know, kind of defensive end / outside linebacker they have, and Alex Highsmith. We actually had you can blame us for it. We actually interviewed Alex Highsmith when he was entering the draft, but it was right before he was selected. And I said to myself, I said, you know, this was a guy I really liked for the Bengals in some capacity. But as I ended that interview, I said, this guy's going to get drafted by the Ravens or the Steelers. This is that tweener guy. I just knew it. And lo and behold, he goes to the Steelers. I'm going, oh, and because he was like such a nice guy, right? I'm like, oh, come on. Anyway, he's got a new big deal, and so now the Steelers, you know, to combat the great quarterbacks in their own division, they have Watt and they've got Highsmith, and they still have Hayward, and they're ready to go. But his quote, a 5-year contract for Alex Highsmith. He did have he was the team leader, 14.5 sacks last year and 5 forced fumbles. The number one goal is the Super Bowl. We've got to get back to that. Highsmith said at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, everyone in this locker room has the goal of not only getting to it, but winning it. That's the number one and only goal. So a big 5-year deal. He's
5-year deal.
Years old. So, I mean, this is kind of the big payday for him. Congratulations to him. Not great news for the Bengals or the rest of the AFC North, though.
Right. Yeah, and this is with the quarterbacks coming, with all these great quarterbacks, you know, quarterbacks in the AFC North where they have to deal with Burrow, they're going to have to deal with Lamar Jackson. You know, they'll have to deal with Deshaun Watson if he turns out to be who the Browns hope he is. You got to have guys that can get to the quarterback, which is why I think that Myles Murphy falling to the Bengals' lap in 2000 or not 2000, falling to the Bengals' lap at the 28th overall pick this year was huge. You know. But yeah, I think that they realize that you know, with these good quarterbacks and good quarterback play, you got to have guys who can get to the quarterback. So
yeah, let's go to just kind of some various NFL headlines, and then we will pop out of here. This was a scary moment, but I think he's going to be okay based on reports here. A guy that I think a lot of Bengals fans wanted Cincinnati to look at after the losses of Von Bell and Jesse Bates, but C.J. Gardner-Johnson suffered a non-contact knee injury, was carted off the field, but I saw multiple reports, one here that is referenced from Tom Pelissero saying, quote, he's fine, and another, I think, from Field Yates of ESPN saying that the MRI showed no structural damage. So it seems like he dodged a bullet, but anytime you see the cart, it's like, or hear about the cart, it's like,
right. It's not just the cart. It almost seems that when you hear about these non-contact injuries, it's almost always a bad knee injury. So I'm glad to see that he's doing. I don't ever want to root for a player to get hurt. So I'm glad that he's doing well, or that he seems to be doing well. I hope he's fine. But yeah, those especially this early in training camp, man. Can you imagine the big free agent acquisition? I don't want to think about it. Yeah, it'd be terrible. Yeah, but hopefully he's doing well. I'm glad he's doing well.
And in stuff that's just kind of, yeah, I mean, it's just the drills and
drills,
through stuff. It's
nothing
not,
important,
it's not,
right?
Yeah. Well, this is kind of a catch-all article here on NFL.com because tis the season for unveiling throwback uniforms.
Yep.
The Bengals have their own white out jersey or the black white jersey, whatever you want to call it. The Jets have their legacy white jersey we saw, I thought, and I want to get your take on your favorite here of some of these throwbacks that we've seen. I thought the Oilers one from the Titans, that thing was killer. I thought that one was awesome.
I would like to know. I would like to know when the Ravens are going to wear their old Browns jerseys, or if they don't want to do it. They're too embarrassed. No, I love the fact that the Titans are going to be wearing their old Oiler. Those old Oiler uniforms were great. I love.
Yeah, that was awesome. There was that one. Who am I missing here? There's the Jets. There's one I really liked too that I can't remember who.
You had the alternate uniform with Cleveland's, the white. I don't know if you're just talking
about. Yeah.
That looks good.
Yeah,
I thought those looked really good. Trying so hard to beat Cincinnati. No, I liked it. I did. Their all white uniform looks pretty cool.
There was one more. I can't remember which one it was. You got the creamsicle, I think, coming back for the Bucks. Did not like. I thought the Cardinals was very bland when they unveiled those earlier this year. Oh, it was the Seahawks, the old school Seahawks one. I thought that one was really neat.
Yeah,
going back to the silver and the bright green and the bright blue. I thought that was really neat looking too. But it's cool that they're making variations for this too.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Now, if the Bengals, so we have the white tiger, which I love. If they do a throwback game, do you have an era of Bengals jersey that you like? The Corey Dillon style, with
that one is the most visually appealing to me.
Yeah,
with the tiger on the shoulder and the tiger stripe, or the striping down it. I mean, I thought that was a really cool one. Truth be told, I like those better than the ones they had in the mid 2000s.
I agree.
When they just replaced that.
Yep.
I do really like their current ones. I think their current ones are very, very sleek as well. But that would, visually, that's the one I like the best. But I think it would be really, really cool to go back just for one game to do those old school pumpkin head ones.
Yeah.
And do it on Ring of Honor night and really just embrace. I mean, this year, I don't know. I just see, they're really doing a good job about embracing history and embracing former players and stuff. If you do the white tiger one, obviously keep doing that a couple times a year and stuff. I visually, I like the tiger on the sleeve better, but I think it would just be a really cool deal if you're able to do the pumpkin head for one game, make it the Ring of Honor game. I think that'd be kind of cool.
I used to have an old pumpkin head helmet. I have no idea where it is. Yeah. I used to have one. I think it was my dad's. Oh man, I'd love to find it somewhere. We're talking years and years and years ago. So
I haven't looked recently, but I think if you support the Ken Anderson Alliance, you can go on their shop and get, I think, an autographed either half pumpkin, half Bengal striped helmet, or one or the other, or something like that from Ken Anderson. And that money becomes a donation. So I don't know if that's still an offer out there, but go check that out.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
The big question is the Steelers going to wear their yellow and black stripe. It's the worst jerseys in NFL history. Those were awful. They were bad.
Those ones were bad. I didn't really like the old Green Bay Packers uniforms either. Those are pretty hideous. And then the ones that the Jets had when they were the quote unquote Titans, also that what was that one? Like a brown and blue or something like that. That one was that
color scheme doesn't match.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it plays well on a black and white TV, I think, but not.
Not 4K. Don't bring that to 4K TV.
Yeah. All right. Last one, kind of tying into, and of course, if you have anything else you'd like to chat about, Jason, I am game, but this is on NFL.com. But Josh Jacobs, even though he got the franchise tag, he is not reporting to Raiders training camp after not getting a long-term deal. Austin Eckler, kind of is at the forefront of this, think tank for the position group. And I guess Josh Jacobs, who has had a pretty solid career since joining the NFL, he's, I guess, kind of the lead man in terms of, hey, I'm not playing under this thing. I want a long-term deal. And so I don't know, as teams kind of usually do, they often cave to this, but I don't know, just based on this position, that's going to be the case here. Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. With running backs have almost no, I'm trying to think of the word. They have almost no leverage. Yeah. I mean, last year he had 1,653 yards, 12 touchdowns. He had added 53 receptions. He had a career year. He's only had less than 1,000 yards once, and that was in 2021. And I think he was hurt. He should be, in line for a huge extension. But I think it would be the Ravens see it as against their best interest to pay a running back a ton of money. And, based on the way the NFL is right now, you can't really blame him that much. I don't think Josh Jacobs has a ton of leverage. I have no idea what their running back depth looks like, but it wouldn't if he doesn't play. And I can't imagine him not playing. I think it would. We all saw what happened to Von Bell when he decided just to sit out for a year. It just kind of killed his career. So I think that, running backs will learn from that. But I don't think sitting out during training camp is going to help him do anything other than just not have to do training camp.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, we went through a lot of different stuff here as the Bengals open up training camp and training camps start to open up around the NFL. Any other thoughts or items that I maybe didn't get to, Jason, that you want to chat about before we hop on out of here?
just one that I was looking up I was looking up earlier today for an article on Cincy Jungle Tomorrow. It was talking about the Bengals' recent history of paying quarterbacks. And I don't know if you know this or not, but they signed Carson Palmer to his first extension in December of 2005 before they hosted the Steelers in the playoffs, which is weird because usually it happens in the offseason. You know what I mean? But they signed him to a 6-year, $92 or $93 million deal. But it was just under 19% of the team's salary cap. And that was when, Mike Brown seemed to be really running the show, and that, you know what I mean? And it wasn't the Blackburns yet. And it was kind of the old Bengals. It wasn't, this is like a whole different franchise now. But considering that he hadn't won a playoff game, he'd only had one really good career or good year so far, which was 2005. And they threw 20% of the team's cap space at him, makes me think that it'll happen with Burrow. He deserves more. He deserves, around 20% for him at this year's cap would be $45-ish million a year, which I think he'll be over that. Yeah.
And what was the impetus to that at that and the timing of that? Because look, if you remember, Carson Palmer didn't play a snap his rookie year. Not one snap.
Right.
So that's in his third year, you're extending him without a year of even playing, right? And what was the impetus of that? The Bengals won the division and went to the playoffs
you
for
think
the first
about
time in 15 years.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then so now the pressure to not only keeping up with the Joneses around the league with the quarterbacks that are getting paid, but Burrow has taken this team now to a Super Bowl. He has won playoff games, and so that's where the pressure resides now for the Bengals to be like, this guy's getting us next level, like Palmer did to a lesser degree. We got to, this is our guy. We got to keep him here.
But that year, Palmer signed for more money than Matt Hasselbeck, who won a Super Bowl. He signed for more money than Tom Brady. He went to one. He went to one. Yeah, he went to one that year. Sorry. Yeah. He went to a Super Bowl. He signed for more money than Tom Brady, who famously took team-friendly deals. But we don't have to go over Tom Brady's accolades. I mean, it's most achieved. Yeah.
We have an episode of its own.
Yeah, I know. But they paid Carson Palmer a very large chunk of the salary cap based on 1 year. And it was a good thing. They went back to the playoffs in 2009. I'm not going to say that he was a disappointment or anything like that. He was good. But yeah, I absolutely believe because of that. And they also paid Dalton. They paid Dalton 6-year, $90. It was $1 million less than they paid Palmer. Now that was a much less proportion of the salary cap because it was 2014 versus 2005. But still, because of that, when I kind of looked all that stuff up for the articles coming out tomorrow in Cincy Jungle, I breathed a sigh of relief. I think it's going to happen. It'll happen. It'll happen.
They pay
their quarterbacks.
And they pay their quarterbacks. They pay their wide receiver. They pay their skill position guys. Yeah. No doubt about it. And I think that Dalton contract was around the same time. Like Kaepernick signed an extension, if I remember correctly. And they kind of structured it a little similarly.
The two big ones that year were Kaepernick and Cutler. Were the big ones, and then Dalton was third behind them. They were both over $100 million. Dalton was just under 92.
Yeah. So, well, good stuff. Can't wait to read that when it comes out. When's the next 3 and Out episode coming out?
Thursday morning. Thursday morning.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. What
We'll
do
be
you got
talking
on
about-
tap this week? Do you know?
We'll be talking about Joe Mixon's new contract and kind of reacting to what's happened at camp so far. And then I'll be at camp on Friday. And if you could have me on, I'll put my finger in the ear and have a microphone. And
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I'm here live from Bengals training. I'll use my best field reporter voice.
Old timey
Oh, exactly.
reporter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Extra.
Hey, read all about it. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll have the yard
All right.
worker out there. It'd be great.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for all that you do for the channel, your show, and the website. We appreciate you. Go check out the 3 and Out podcast on our YouTube channel, as well as it's on Cincy Jungle. You can and the audio channel and all that good stuff. We mentioned how to get that at the beginning on all of your major audio platforms. If you like the video stuff that we do, whether it's live or after the fact, you got to subscribe beneath. Now, Jason, it was beneath me before. Now it's beneath Jason.
Me. Exactly.
By the Cincy Jungle side there, Cincy Jungle logo. Click our show icon. Click the subscribe button. Click the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available. And of course, give us a thumbs up if you like what we're doing on any episodes. We appreciate the feedback there. Go give a thumbs up and a like to the Cincy Jungle Facebook page. Looks like they can follow you at JasonRG83 on Twitter. Jason, okay?
Yep.
So go give him a follow and check out our various Twitter. I'm calling it Twitter. I guess it's X now.
It's X. I don't know what it is. I don't think Elon Musk even knows what it is.
Yeah.
So
So
I
go
saw
follow us there.
I saw somebody on Twitter today, or X or whatever, said that, Instagram created Threads, which is like the imitation of Twitter, and now Twitter is rebranded to X. So Instagram should rebrand to Twitter, and then they would be the Cleveland Browns. So, yeah.
Now, how can we? We're not going anywhere beyond that. We got to end the show right there.
Yeah.
That's classic. I love it. Jason, thanks, bud. Everybody, thank you for tuning in live. We will continue to bring you all kinds of stuff on the Orange and Black Insider, on the 3 and Out podcast. I've got my fingers on the 3 and Out podcast, and Coach Speaking Chalk Talk from Matt Minnick, talking football with Bengal Jim and friends. Go check it out. Appreciate you all. We will talk to you soon.